Welcome to our module on digital literacy and GDPR compliance. In this presentation, we'll explore the critical aspects of GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, and its importance in today's digital age. Our goal today is to discuss GDPR in detail, focusing on the rights of data subjects and the responsibilities of data controllers and processors. We'll examine how to implement GDPR-compliant practices effectively to safeguard both personal and organizational data in various scenarios. By the end of this session, you'll be able to critically evaluate the effectiveness of these practices in protecting data. In this presentation, we will start by understanding the concept of a data subject, which refers to the individual whose data is being processed. Next, we will define the role of a data controller, the entity that determines the purposes and means of processing personal data, and a data processor, the entity that processes data on behalf of the controller. We will then explore the legal basis for processing data, which outlines the lawful grounds for data processing under GDPR. Following this, we will discuss GDPR-compliant practices in both personal and professional contexts to help you understand how to protect your personal data and ensure compliance within an organization. Finally, we will address the consequences of non-compliance, highlighting the repercussions of failing to comply with GDPR and review case studies of notable GDPR violations to learn from past breaches and enhance our practices. Let's start with the term data subject. Under the General Data Protection Regulation or GDPR, the term data subject refers to any identifiable natural person whose personal data is collected, held, or processed. This means any individual who can be identified, directly or indirectly, by reference to various identifiers. These identifiers can include a name, identification number, location data, or an online identifier. Additionally, specific factors such as physical, physiological, genetic, mental, economic, cultural, or social identity can also serve as identifiers. Essentially, a data subject is any individual whose personal data is subject to processing, making them a central focus of GDPR's protective measures. Understanding the concept of a data subject is crucial as it forms the basis of many GDPR provisions designed to safeguard individual privacy and data rights. Now, let's discuss the concept of personal data as it pertains to a data subject. Personal data refers to any information relating to an identifiable individual. This includes basic identity information such as name, address, and identification numbers. It also encompasses web data like location, IP addresses, and cookie data. Health and genetic data, as well as biometric data, are considered personal data under GDPR. Additionally, personal data includes sensitive information such as racial or ethnic data, political opinions, and sexual orientation. The scope of what constitutes personal data is intentionally broad, as defined by the European Data Protection Board in 2021, to ensure comprehensive protection of individuals' privacy and data rights. Understanding the various categories of personal data is crucial for implementing effective GDPR-compliant practices and safeguarding the rights of data subjects. Under the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, data subjects are granted a comprehensive set of rights to empower them in controlling how their personal data is used. These rights include the right to be informed, which ensures transparency about how personal data is collected and used. The right of access allows individuals to know and access the data held about them. The right to rectification enables data subjects to correct inaccurate or incomplete data. The right to erasure, also known as the right to be forgotten, allows individuals to request the deletion of their data. The right to restrict processing gives individuals the ability to limit how their data is used. The right to data portability allows data subjects to transfer their data between different service providers. The right to object gives individuals the power to object to data processing in certain circumstances. Lastly, rights related to automated decision-making and profiling protect individuals from decisions made solely on automated processing, ensuring a human element in significant decisions. These rights, as outlined by the European Commission in 2020, are crucial for maintaining control over personal data. A data controller is a crucial entity under the GDPR responsible for determining the purposes and means of processing personal data. Essentially, the data controller decides why and how personal data should be processed. For instance, consider a retail company that collects customer information for marketing purposes. In this scenario, the retail company acts as a data controller because it determines the intent and method of data collection and usage. Similarly, a hospital maintaining patient records is also a data controller. The hospital decides the reasons for collecting patient data, such as for medical treatment and record keeping, and the manner in which this data is processed and stored. Data controllers have several critical responsibilities under the GDPR to ensure the protection and proper management of personal data. First and foremost, they must ensure that data processing activities are lawful, fair, and transparent. This means providing clear and accessible information to data subjects about how their data will be used. Additionally, data controllers must uphold the rights of data subjects, ensuring they can exercise their rights such as access, rectification, and erasure. Implementing appropriate security measures to protect personal data from unauthorized access or breaches is also a key responsibility. Data controllers are required to conduct data protection impact assessments or DPIAs when processing activities pose a high risk to individuals' rights and freedoms. Finally, in the event of a data breach, data controllers must report the incident to the relevant supervisory authority within 72 hours. These responsibilities are essential for maintaining trust and compliance in the digital landscape. A data processor is an entity that processes personal data on behalf of the data controller, strictly following the controller's instructions. Unlike the data controller, who determines the purposes and means of processing, the data processor carries out the actual processing activities as directed. For example, consider an IT service provider managing databases for a hospital. In this scenario, the IT service provider acts as a data processor because it handles patient data based on the hospital's instructions. Similarly, a cloud storage provider storing data for a client company is another example of a data processor. The cloud provider doesn't decide how or why the data is used, but merely stores and manages it according to the client's directives. Understanding the role of a data processor is crucial, as it plays an essential part in maintaining the data security and integrity while following the strict guidelines set forth by the data controller. Data processors have critical responsibilities under the GDPR to ensure the proper handling and protection of personal data. First and foremost, they must process data only on the instructions of the data controller, ensuring that they adhere strictly to the guidelines provided. Implementing appropriate security measures to protect personal data from breaches or unauthorized access is also a key responsibility. Data processors are required to assist the data controller in ensuring GDPR compliance, which includes cooperating during audits and providing necessary information. Additionally, they must maintain accurate records of all processing activities to provide transparency and accountability. In the event of a data breach, data processors must notify the data controller without undue delay, enabling prompt action to mitigate any potential harm. These responsibilities are essential for maintaining the integrity and security of personal data throughout the processing lifecycle. To summarize the key differences between data controllers and data processors, A data controller determines the purposes and means of data processing and has direct legal obligations to data subjects, ensuring data protection compliance. In contrast, a data processor processes data on behalf of the controller, following the controller's instructions. While processors implement security measures, they have fewer direct legal obligations to data subjects compared to controllers. Under GDPR, personal data can only be processed if there is a legal basis. These include consent, which must be freely given, specific, informed, and unambiguous. Contract, where processing is necessary for the performance of a contract. Legal obligation, to comply with a legal requirement. Vital interests, protect the vital interests of the data subject or another person. Public task, for the performance of a task carried out in the public interest. And legitimate interests, where processing is necessary for the legitimate interests pursued by the controller or a third party. Each legal basis has specific requirements and must be documented to ensure compliance. In a personal context, adopting GDPR-compliant practices is essential to protect your data. First, educate yourself on GDPR and your rights as a data subject. Practice data minimization by collecting and retaining only the necessary data. Enhance your data security by using strong passwords, enabling two-factor authentication, and keeping your software updated. Ensure transparency by being clear about how you use personal data and always obtain consent. Lastly, exercise your rights to access, rectify, and erase your data whenever necessary. By following these practices, you can significantly enhance your personal data protection and compliance with GDPR. In a professional context, implementing GDPR-compliant practices is crucial for protecting organizational data. Start by securing top management support and appointing a data protection officer, or DPO. Develop comprehensive data protection policies and conduct regular reviews to ensure ongoing compliance. Perform data audits to map data flows and identify any potential risks. Implement robust technical and organizational security measures to safeguard data. Provide regular GDPR training and awareness programs for all employees. Establish clear procedures to handle data subject requests efficiently. Finally, develop and regularly test a data breach response plan to ensure prompt and effective action in case of an incident. These steps are essential for maintaining GDPR compliance and protecting personal and organizational data. Non-compliance with GDPR can lead to severe consequences. Organizations can face substantial fines, up to €20 million or 4% of their annual global turnover, whichever is higher. Beyond financial penalties, non-compliance can cause significant reputational damage, resulting in loss of customer trust and negative publicity. There are also legal consequences, including potential lawsuits from affected data subjects and increased scrutiny from regulatory authorities. Ensuring GDPR compliance is crucial not only to avoid these penalties, but also to maintain a trustworthy and legally sound business operation. Let's look at some notable GDPR violations to understand the importance of compliance. British Airways was fined £20 million for a data breach that affected over 400,000 customers, primarily due to inadequate security measures. Marriott International faced an £18.4 million fine for a breach that compromised 339 million guest records, highlighting insufficient security practices. Google was fined €50 million by the French Data Protection Authority for lack of transparency and failing to obtain valid consent for ad personalization. These cases underscore the severe financial and reputational impacts of non-compliance with GDPR. In this presentation, we provided an overview of the key concepts and roles within the GDPR framework. We covered definitions and responsibilities of data subjects, data controllers, and data processors, Emphasizing the importance of understanding personal data, we discussed the various rights data subjects have under GDPR, such as access, rectification, and erasure. The presentation outlined the necessary steps and best practices for implementing GDPR-compliant practices in both personal and professional contexts. This includes the critical role of top management, regular audits, and employee training. We also highlighted the severe consequences of non-compliance, including substantial fines, reputational damage, and legal repercussions. Finally, notable case studies involving British Airways, Marriott International, and Google illustrated the real-world implications of failing to adhere to GDPR standards. Here are the references for the information provided in this presentation, including sources from the European Data Protection Board, BBC News, and more. Thank you for participating in this presentation. Should you have any further questions or need additional resources, please feel free to reach out.